Hello, everyone. So we are really excited to have everyone here tonight. Hope everyone is enjoying their Tuesday. Still feeling excited after the Wake Forest win over Virginia Tech on Saturday. And we've got an exciting program tonight. So I'm Corey Pegram. I'm a 2013 Wake grad. I now serve as our executive director for the Office of Family Engagement. And I graduated 12 years ago, so I remember the how fun and exciting and also stressful the job search was as a student. And I candidly wish I had used the Office of Personal and Career Development more when I was a senior. So really excited for you guys as parents to hear from the team and also some of our current students tonight about the OPCD. So as one of the most important and distinctive aspects of the Wake Forest student experience, the OPCD is committed to supporting every Wake Forest student on their unique career path during and after college. So over the past decade, the team's leaders have built one of the most innovative operations in all of higher ed. I can say this and knowing Andy and Heidi personally, they know the market, they know how students think and behave, and they also really understand that helping parents through this process is also really essential. So over the past decade, on average, over 96% of each graduating class is employed or in grad school within 6 months of graduation. And notably, the college and school of business employment and grad school outcomes are practically equal each year. So, like I said, we're really fortunate to have a couple of our leaders from that office and several students joining us tonight to talk to you guys. So, Andy Chan, who's our vice president for the OPCD, he'll kick us off in this session. So, Andy came to Wake 16 years ago after running the Center at Stanford's Graduate Business School and leading educational technology startups. So, he's been an innovator in pretty much everything he does. He's initiated and overseen and transformed many of our hallmark programs in addition to the OPCD, such as the Center for Entrepreneurship, the Alumni Personal and Career Development Center, the Mentoring Resource Center, the School of Professional Studies, and the Summer Immersion Pre-College Program for high school students. So he's accomplished a lot. He's here to support your students and you guys, and I'm going to throw it over at him to get into our program.
Thank you so much, Corey, and welcome to all of our parents of seniors. We're really excited that you're here to be able to hear from us and hopefully get some questions you might have about what's happening in today's job market and also, how things can go for your senior, how we can help them out. Our purpose is to really help address the most common questions about the college to career process for seniors and how you can best support them through this process. So I'm going to take a couple minutes to talk about the current market, and then I'll ask my esteemed colleague and faculty member Heidi Robinson to join me in discussing the experiences and perspectives of our students and how we support them. And then Heidi will actually ask a few of our recent alumni to share their journey and interactions with our team and the events we put on and how they actually navigated through this process. And finally, we'll try to answer your questions. So a couple things is, if you have a question, you can add it to the Q&A link in the Zoom in the bottom. And either I or Heidi or someone on our team will try to answer it directly, or we'll try to answer it through the webinar. And we'll just get started. So I just want to let you know, again, thank you so much for being here. We love to figure out how to help our parents, because we know in helping our parents to be great coaches, essentially, for their students will be able to become the CEO of their own lives. So think of this as your first tips to think about how you can become a great executive coach to your own student. So first, let's talk about the market. As you might imagine, the full-time job market is pretty cloudy, and it's cloudy from the standpoint that it's very hard to see exactly what's going on below the surface. Right in front of us, actually, on the positive side, there are actually quite a few job postings. I mean, almost as high as last year, so it remains very high, and last year was a very solid year with respect to the number of job opportunities being posted. What makes it cloudy is it's very difficult to know underneath each job posting how many people they're actually going to hire, because they could have one job with many people they're looking to hire in one year and then reduce the number, but you don't know that. And the second piece is sometimes when jobs get posted, the companies go through the candidates, and because of the state of uncertainty about the overall economy, the companies decide not to hire or they decide to wait on their hire. And so it's just very difficult to tell. And I know it might be just because of this uncertainty, it's making our students feel somewhat anxious. Probably you do also. And I think the thing that can most be, I guess, the worst sort of action or inaction would be to say, well, I'll just put it off till it actually gets more clear. I think we should actually assume that the weather is going to be cloudy with respect to the job market for a while. And so we can't wait till it gets clear. We're going to have to actually take action even though it's cloudy. So a couple things that also show that there are some challenges in the market. First is that the number of recruiters actually traveling to campuses around the country is down. And partly it's actually they're just trying to save money because every company's and organization is trying to be efficient. There's some sectors, as you can imagine, like the federal government, where they're not hiring like the way they used to. So as a result, they're not coming to campus. And so we're experiencing that here at Wake, and also we're seeing that at other schools. Another thing is that companies are hiring very differently than what has occurred in the past. So there's always been some set of companies who will hire interns and then rehire those that are successful in their internship to become full-time employees. And so those companies are continuing to do so at a pretty high rate. It's only a small number of companies. Actually, I'd say it's less than 10% of all the companies out there who even do that kind of thing, but it feels like a lot because they tend to be the really big companies who a lot of students know of and you know of that you think, oh, those are the best places to work. But in actuality, it's actually sort of a small percentage. The reality is recruiting is much less formal and it's more just in time. So there are a lot of organizations who will hire and post a job in April or even May of this coming year, 2026, to hire to start in August or July. So if your student's actually thinking that, well, one, the organizations they may be looking for may not be hiring until then, but two, that they can't actually get the job now for next July or August or September because, again, those companies aren't hiring. So just being aware of that is an important dynamic. The other thing is that when students do apply to jobs, recruiters are not so great at responding to applicants. So what's happened with this whole kickoff of technology really making it easy for people to apply to jobs, the organizations have so many applicants that they just don't even know how to respond. Even the automated response isn't happening. So that can be really discouraging for students because they think, I applied, and so why aren't I getting a response? And why is this even worth it? And the reality is we're going to give you some tips on how to get around that and how to make it work differently. But that process is discouraging, and you just have to help your student understand this is just the way it is. It's sort of a game, and it's not anything like college admissions. So college admissions, you apply, there's a deadline, you hear back by a certain date, you're done. This is sort of almost the exact opposite. Every organization, every industry is going to have a different deadline, a different process, and you have to figure out how to navigate all that. As you can tell, the punchline is going to be come to see a coach in our office, and we can help you through that because it is that challenging. So, anyways, a couple other things is that, as you can imagine, companies are just, again, I said, sort of being delayed about how they're thinking about hiring. So if the economy gets a little bit more stable, it gets more clear, they will start hiring. And they'll actually companies that might have originally hired in the fall will start hiring in the spring. Like the reality is they're not going to do the same thing all the time. They're actually doing it based on what the state of the market is in terms of their businesses. One thing that I will say that's really important is that we do have students who actually are getting emails from recruiters or have actually recruiters have reached out or they responded and said, I'm going to attend an event. And when that happens, the employers can get really discouraged because they're like, wait, I actually want this student to talk to me. And our students sometimes just forget that. So there is one thing you might ask your own student is if you're getting any emails from recruiters, you should at least respond. Like even be courteous, even if it feels like you're not that interested or you're too busy, because you never know. Once you start getting a little more information, you might realize you are quite interested. So we just ask you to just nudge your students to be responsive and alert because in some cases they're actually uh, in the eye of the recruiter. The recruiter wants to talk to them and would love to make sure that they're interested. So that's sort of the big picture about the market. Here's some just implications to think about. One is we should all just acknowledge and accept, and we say this every year, that finding a job is never easy. It is always hard. Even in an amazing job market, it's actually pretty hard. And it requires being very steady, persistent, and just patient, just really determined. sometimes people think that, when the job market's really good, it won't be competitive. But as many of you might be aware, there's most of the top companies in the country, it's like less than 1% of the people who apply get a job, which is harder than getting into, the top Ivy League schools in the country. So it's not easy to get these jobs at these really well-known companies. And our students are very competitive. We have students who can actually get there. But if you don't get there, it's okay. There are a lot of other organizations that are great places to start. You don't have to go to the place where, only 0.1% of all the people in the country get to go work. I think helping us keep ourselves sort of steady and recognizing it's more important to get in the market and get in the game than it is to have to go to the most famous place. That's the hardest place to go. Um, Another thing that I'd like to have you think about is just this idea of helping your students realize if you want to get a job by graduation, which is in about how many months? 7 months, 8 months? It's important to actually think of it like if I'm going to be having that job of which I'd like to be able to get that job offer maybe a month before or two, there is a set of things I have to do to actually be able to get someone to say, I want to hire you. And that includes an amazing resume, ready to interview, knowing people in the organization, and being able to treat this process a little bit like I'm going to have to go from not knowing how to run to running a marathon in 6 months. So the best way to do it is having a coach to help you develop a game plan to stay on track, to meet with them regularly so that you can actually make sure you do the work. Some students can do it on their own, but it's very hard when there's so many other things going on. And so we really highly recommend that idea. Think of the coach right now as what is going to coach you to this race that you're going to have to run. I will say there will be opportunities all year long. And that's a good thing. Like you can go throughout the year, but the challenge is that you don't never know which ones are going to come when. So you actually have to be in the game right now, right from the beginning. And that what's happening is that because of the market, when companies find great candidates, they are not necessarily keeping the job open until the deadline date they stated in the original job description. If they find like the greatest person, they're going to say, "Hey, we closed that search like 2 months before we were supposed to." So students actually have to see something. If they even sort of like it, they have to apply, and they have to be thinking, how do I actually get an interview, which we'll teach you a little bit tonight on how to go about doing it. The key tools, Heidi will go into more detail, but think of them as Handshake and LinkedIn. And then there are basically automated search agents within each of those tools that can help you find things without you having to do a lot of searching and push them to you. And then you have to apply. And the application process is actually not that hard because it's so automated. The tricky part is that the thing that's going to make the difference is networking. And we can teach your student how to network. We can help them tap into the Wake Forest network. We can help them tap into, honestly, your own networks or your friends' networks or your family's networks. Like we can help them do that, but they have to do that. In fact, the way I try to talk to students about it is that think of it as 20% apply online, 80% networking. Most students, when I meet them, they're 100% online. That's how they think they're going to get a job. And I'll be honest with you, their odds of getting an interview applying 100% online are close to zero, like literally close to zero. So that math doesn't work no matter how many things you apply to. So it just helped them understand like this network thing isn't that hard. It actually gets easier over time. We've had the most introverted students actually go from I'm afraid to talk to someone to a month later going, this is so easy. Like I've met so many people who want to help me. Why I wish I'd done this like months ago. We can help them through that. A couple more things I want to finish with. One is think about this as a numbers game, which we all talk about. You might actually have to apply to 50 applications, 50 opportunities to get maybe 5 interviews to get one offer. And at least for me, if I were applying for something, I'd be thinking, I want to actually get 2 offers. So at least I have 2 things to compare against. So that means double 100 applications, 10 interviews, 2 offers, and this could take 6 months. So having an expectation that that's what's going to take, and if I divide it up by 6 months times 24 weeks, it's not so bad. But if you actually have to do all this in one day, it's going to be hard. So think about it as like, how do we pace this over time, and how do we just sort of get going slow in the beginning and it builds up over time? As I mentioned, come to the OPCD. We really honestly, at this moment, really want to help all the seniors. This is the most important time. We want to help them optimize their brand, their job search readiness, and their probability of success. One last final thing I'll say is if your organization wants to hire anyone, talent, internships, jobs, please contact our employer relations team. I think Patrick's going to put the link into the chat. but we really want your help to actually grow our network, especially at this time in the economy where things are tricky and tough. And we're just doing everything we can to help your student make sure they are able to get a great job. Okay, so I'm going to finish with that and just say I'm going to bring Heidi on so we can have a little conversation about her perspective. As many of you may have heard of Heidi Robinson, so she came to Wake Forest now. Wow, time has passed. I want to say, how long would you say? At least 12 years ago. Maybe it's 14, but it's a while. And Heidi she's been a master's student in counseling. She has been a parent of two demon deacons. She created our college career courses that are honestly some of the most innovative and important courses that we teach in the college and most popular for many students. And she has just worked with so many students over the years that she really understands the psyche of our students. So I just want to say, Heidi, welcome, and maybe you can just say hello to all the parents.
I would love to say hello to the parents. We are so grateful that your seniors are with us. We see so many of them, and they are bright, ambitious, and so talented. It is a privilege for us to be able to work with them and also to be with you here this evening.
Thanks, Heidi. Feel all of your, honestly, your love, generosity, and kindness to the way you feel about our students. I know that we have some students who probably have struggled to get started in this process and aren't sure, like, either one, is it too late, or two, like maybe I came a long time ago and it wasn't really all that I wanted, it wasn't that helpful. Like, how do we help them to get going again in their senior year?
That is perfect. Thank you, Andy. And I love that question. I think the first thing that I would address is it's never too late. It is never too late. I have had seniors walk in 2 weeks before graduation and they're ashamed and they say, "Oh gosh, I haven't done all of these things. It's over for me." And the fact is this, those students land and we get them up to speed quickly because we know how to give them strategies and tools to be able to go ahead and optimize the things that interest them. So that would be the first thing. It is far from too late. There's a whole lot of runway here in this senior year. So I would say that's one. Two, students who have not yet had a chance to get started may feel embarrassed or they may feel like there's something that they've done wrong or that they're behind. I actually hear I'm behind from first years. So our seniors absolutely think to themselves, there must be something wrong with me here in September or October if I don't have a job yet. And so normalizing this process that actually they've got a whole lot of time still left to get on their toes. So, I always tell Wake Forest students, we're not people who actually sit on our heels. We are a campus of students who get ready for the opportunity that's ahead of them, or that may pop up at the most unexpected time. So I know, Andy, you've spoken to this idea that there are coaches here who are so eager to work with all of our students. And one of the things that you mentioned, I think, is really bears having conversation about. If a student came in their first year and perhaps they met with a coach and they may not have understood exactly what a coaching appointment might be, or they had expectations that may not yet have been developmentally appropriate for that time in that student's experience, or even they may have changed their interest areas since then, they need to come back. Really and truly, finding a coaching relationship where there's a fit is almost as important as feeling like you have all of the strategies in your hands. Going ahead and finding someone with whom you can build a relationship and who understands who you are, that's critical. So if a student came in at one point and didn't feel like they found the right person, come back. I always joke that a student may come to me for a first appointment, but they may be actually a better fit for the coach whose office is next door to me. And there is no harm, no foul in that. I want students to have that fit. So those are some of the things that I would say, even if a student came too early or didn't feel like they knew what they wanted, we're here to meet them where they are.
Great, Heidi. Sometimes concern will get asked by a parent or a student is, I didn't major in business and I didn't major in anything that I could imagine some employer would want to hire me. Can you talk a little bit about how we help students who are in that kind of mindset or like situation where they think they just should have chosen a different major and then things would be different?
Oh, I love that. Well, one of the myths that we talk about a lot is that your major, a lot of students believe that your major equals your career path. And one of the phrases we use time and time again is that students are not married to their major. Their major equips them, it's a flexible tool in their hands, but what they do with it is truly up to the kinds of interests that they have, the skills and experiences that are abundant in their Wake Forest experience. And those are the things that actually determine the path. And I could give example after example of seniors, one who sat with me in class yesterday, who's a politics and international affairs major and is going to Wells Fargo. So some people would say, how is that possible? And my response would be, it happens all the time here. Not an anomaly. Our students go in all sorts of different industries, not necessarily tied to what the discipline is they studied. So that would be one thing. And parents, I would say, if you're wanting to go ahead and help give your students some ideas, and perhaps it's even helpful sometimes, I would speak as a parent, to look at the outcomes for oneself. And that place where you could see, where do politics and international affairs students go, is on our website. And we are very transparent about our outcomes by year and by major. And so for parents and for students who are trying to go ahead and get different kinds of ideas about where are communication students landing, you can go to a spot on the OPCD website that says explore majors. And one of the things that is listed right there is a link for outcomes. And it's a wonderful way for students to go ahead and get some ideas of things that may interest them or may not. But it's also really helpful for parents to go ahead and have that information so that they're prepared for conversations with their student.
Thanks, Heidi. Thanks for mentioning that resource about outcomes by major, and all the information we have there that helps you realize that there are a lot of different jobs your student can get no matter what they majored in. Let's talk about the classes that I mentioned. You know, you created these courses that are really important. What are the kinds of courses you recommend for seniors to consider taking and sort of what's the benefit of taking some of these courses, of which I know there are many, but you can really refer to that.
Absolutely. Thank you. And I do think the college to career classes, some taught by me, others by other faculty members, are some of the best ways to help students get off start. In other words, it's a way to have a structured process that is part of their academic schedule. The courses are all 1.5 credits and half semester. They are housed in the Department of Education. Students sometimes call them the EDU classes, which stands for the Department of Education. For seniors looking toward the spring, they have a real advantage. Students will often say, the classes fill up, the college to career classes fill up too quickly. Well, as a senior, you have some of the best opportunity and best registration times. In the spring, there is a course it's called career planning. And we have always lovingly referred to it as the kitchen sink class because a student could start in January and begin with personal branding, looking at interests, learning how to network, and going ahead and having those as assignments, updating one's LinkedIn profile, learning how to use Handshake and all the different resources and networking with our very fierce alumni base. So 299, there'll be multiple sections starting in the spring. The other that seniors tell me is a real help is called Options in the World of Work. And students might know it by the course number EDU 220. And in that course, it's one of the places in the college where you can really get an overview of all of the different places and spaces for exploration, as well as going ahead and comparing cities and costs of living in different cities where different opportunities exist. Those are the two that I would truly suggest as starting places. The other is called strategic job search, perhaps the most direct um, uh, title for one of our courses. But it is also one of the hallmarks of these courses that in each one of them, there are some things we guarantee students they will learn to do. They will work on their personal branding, their resume, their LinkedIn, their handshake profile. They will go to career events, which we love seeing them do. They will also learn how to create a professional network. And so those are some of the base, so if you will, foundational elements of each of the courses. So the three would be career planning, options in the world of work, and strategic job search.
Excellent. Thanks for sharing those. And Patrick, thank you for sharing that information to the audience and letting them know about those things. So one particular resource is Handshake. And I mentioned it earlier, and maybe you can talk a little bit about how does Handshake work? How important is it? How can students maximize the benefit from it? And then how does it compare to using other big sites like LinkedIn or Indeed?
One of the greatest things about Handshake is that it is a two-way mirror for our students. Students are there on this platform where all of these opportunities are posted. The other folks who are on there are recruiters. So once a student updates their Handshake profile, not only will they start to have a feed of opportunities that align with their interests coming to them, recruiters can also message students who have identified in their Handshake profile that they may have an interest in marketing. And so it's a huge advantage to our students because there are some opportunities that will come simply to Wake Forest. There may be other opportunities that go to perhaps 5 different schools. But the benefit of being on Handshake for a Wake Forest student is that those are verified opportunities, whereas on some other platforms, they may not necessarily have been vetted as ours are. But the other piece of that is that they can really tailor their Handshake profile to the kinds of things that are interesting to them. So, sort of in summary, students can tailor their search experience, and recruiters can find our students.
Yeah, thank you for sharing all that about Handshake. Yeah, one of the things that I think that people also don't know about a tool like Handshake, it's sort of like software on our phone. Um, it keeps getting updated every year. So if you used it, let's say your first year, your sophomore year, and now you're a senior, you might go, well, I used it back then, it didn't work. It's like, well, the system actually is like totally revamped. So if you go back to it this year, you'll actually see things you wouldn't otherwise see. The other thing is that because the network is connected to basically all the schools in the United States, about 1,500 of them, that what happens is a lot of all the opportunities that are going to the schools all over the country are also coming to the Wake Forest students. So it's not just a small database, it's actually something quite big. So I just want to just help you know, like, this is why it's really important. Plus, we're able to communicate targeted information. When a student says, I'm really interested in sports, and we hear about an alum come to speak on sports, we'll send an email only to the students who said, I'm interested in sports, because we don't want to send something about sports to all the students if they aren't interested in it. So we need the students to tell us, I'm very interested in these things, and then we can actually make sure they get targeted information. So I'll put that out there too. Another question we get asked oftentimes is just about grad school, Heidi. And obviously, in this marketplace, when the job market's hard, students oftentimes are thinking about grad school. What's the typical advice you give to students when they're thinking about grad school? And it could be grad school in general, but if you actually can think of, certain areas, whether it be law or otherwise, that you find there's some generally good advice you give them, what would that be?
I would say first get really clear on why grad school immediately after graduation. I would say for many students, grad school becomes more compelling after a young professional has been out in the world and sort of has a better or more defined interest area. We've had some students who immediately matriculate after graduation into law school, but then find that they don't really have a sense of what to specialize in, or students who want to go ahead and enroll into an MBA program, but haven't gone ahead and had any business experience. Having a little bit of road miles in the workspace actually helps students understand whether professional or graduate school is for them, but it also helps make the graduate or professional school experience more meaningful. So I worry when students are just one track, not willing to explore what other possibilities might be out there, because there are some chances that they may get out into the workplace and decide they really are not sure that they want their master's in psychology. They might actually find that they are going to go into an MBA program, or they might have another interest that pops up that they would not have known as a satisfying option had they not gone ahead and gotten out and explored a little bit.
That's great. You and I are totally in alignment. Oftentimes students, really it's like, what is that clear purpose? And if there is a really clear purpose and also it's connected to like what's after, that's great. And usually that takes a little bit of time and thinking to make sure of. And so a student may actually find, well, I should take the GRE or the GMAT now because I'm in school and I want to have my options open. That's a good thing if you actually have the time and desire to do it. But really, the right time to apply is when you really know what you want and can articulate that with some clarity. I think that's part of the application process. People want to know, like, what are you going to do with this particular course of study? It's interestingly, I'll mention that recently I got interviewed to ask, is the MBA still worth it? Because getting an MBA is really expensive, especially a full-time MBA. And so I ended up writing a blog that maybe Patrick can find called in the OPCD Compass blog. So a lot of our team members are writing things to just tell the market, like, what are we learning? What do we know? And so that particular one might give you an insight if you're interested in my thoughts on like the MBA market and grad school, which is very similar to what Heidi just mentioned around the key things to think about. All right, I have one final question for you, Heidi, that I know we're going to get to some of these a little bit later as you talk to our alumni, but what kind of things would you say are like great ways that indicate both what our alumni network is like in terms of their responsiveness and their tightness, and then also what are some of the tools that we recommend they use that actually maybe students aren't even aware of, but I think it'd be helpful to share some of that.
Absolutely. We have such a mighty alumni network, and it's always something for students to be reminded that Wake Forest is hard to get in and it is hard to get out. And no one knows that better than our alumni. And so when a student reaches out to an alum in an organization, that alum would always rather go ahead and hire a Wake Forest student into their team than someone else, because our students outwork all the others. They just look different in the marketplace. And so our alumni very clearly remember that someone helped them too. There is not a one of us who gets where we are without help from others. And asking for help is actually a strength. A lot of times our students feel like they should not be reaching out because it might go ahead and be an imposition for one of our alumni. And the fact is, we are wired as human beings to enjoy helping one another. So to the degree you can encourage your students to be using two different resources that are really quite amazing. One is by using LinkedIn to go ahead and look up our Wake Forest website and then clicking on alumni. You'll find that there are 50,000 plus alumni who have identified themselves on LinkedIn, and students can sort those alumni by major, by location, by industry, and find those folks within organizations that are really there and wanting to help them. Now, sometimes students will say, well, I reached out to someone on LinkedIn and I didn't hear back from them. So it's helpful to remind our students that someone may have been on vacation. They may have had a big project that they were finishing, but if they didn't get back to you, they are not rejecting our students. We just may need to go ahead and reach back out again. The other place that is always eye-opening for our students is the Wake Network. And that is truly an important resource for students to be using. It is internal to Wake Forest. It has students, alumni, and parents and friends of Wake Forest, and they have profiles on this internal network. What students can do is, again, they can sort by city. They can sort by student organization. So if a student had, for example, a Greek affiliation, they can look up all the people with that same affiliation that are in the Wake network. Or if someone typed in Lululemon, they might be able to find someone who it could be associated with a company of interest for them. So the Wake network, one of the things that's so powerful is that our alumni go ahead and have their Gmail there. They may have their cell phone number there. And that's an opportunity for our young alumni to be able to help current students, which is always very satisfying to them.
Thanks, Heidi, for sharing these resources. Thank you, Patrick, for providing them to the group. One of the things that also is very interesting is when you have on LinkedIn, and this is one of the reasons why coming to our office for office hours in the afternoon to review your resume and LinkedIn profile, is that there are actually subgroups within the Wake Forest alumni group, whether it be by location in New York or whether it be by industry sector like media and entertainment or finance, that you can become a member of those subgroups and find people within the groups within the alumni network. So there are all these different ways that you can actually get access to alumni that exist that oftentimes our students aren't really aware of. And with a little bit of help from a coach or one of our peer coaches in the office hours or being in one of the courses, all of a sudden, I mean, one of the number one reasons when students are in the course, they go, I didn't realize there were so many resources and so many people willing to help me. I thought I had to do this all by myself. And they came to realize that they can get a little bit of help and it smooths things out a long way. I'm going to pass the baton over to you, Heidi, so you can take the lead and talk to our recent alumni who are going to share their stories and experiences. So I'll be back in a little bit.
All right. Thank you, Andy. All right. Our young alums, class of 2025, please feel free to turn on your cameras. We are eager to talk with you. Parents, there really is no substitute for hearing from our young alumni and students. And here we are so fortunate to have 3 young alumni who are here to share their story, who are all out in the workspace and have all they're doing remarkable things, and they did remarkable things to get there. So, if I may, I'd like to first let you all introduce yourselves to our parents and with name, major, the industry you're in, and your role, so to speak. Torin, would you like to kick us off?
My name is Torin Lewis. I am working for CoStar, a commercial real estate company. I'm currently based in Richmond, Virginia. I majored in Spanish and I minored in economics, and I am currently working on their lease analysis team.
Thank you, Torin. Sophie?
Hi, I'm Sophie, and I was a communications major. I am currently working at a influencer marketing agency called Influenceable, and I am a social media coordinator.
Thank you, Soph. Massey?
Hello, everybody. My name is Massey Flippin. I was an econ major with minors in computer science and classical studies. I now work for a small real estate company as an associate consultant called Reed Jones Advisors, helping advise universities on strategic development.
Fabulous. You have so much to be proud of. I want to take you back 1 year to the fall of your senior year. Just going to let you sit with that for a moment. So we're rolling back to October of 2024. I want to ask you, what were your feelings? How were you feeling at this time related to careers and jobs and sort of the conversations that are in the water in the fall of your senior year? So you're all nodding. Massey, do you want to kick us off? What was it like?
I can take that up. I had just finished up an internship that was not associated with return offers, as Andy had mentioned before. So it was somewhat frustrating to get thrown right back into the fire as you come back to school, and maybe some of your peers are employed and some are not. But a big part of your fall semester should be working to set yourself up to have those conversations with employers that are not hiring, say, occur in the fall or early winter. And I think that's where, as you look at your students, where you need to look to set them up successfully. And I can pass it to Sophie or Torrin as well.
What was fall of your senior year like? What were your thoughts and feelings? Sophie, I see you've unmuted.
Yeah, I completely agree with Massey. That's the first thing that came to my mind. I also just got done with an internship that was not doing return offers. So it was a little bit frustrating with some of my friends and some students who were in the business school or hoping for a return offer from their internship in the summer. So I think it was definitely hard having to start over. But I definitely recommend getting a jump on things with it being already so early. I know that the job process is just really getting started for those new opportunities. So that's kind of how I was feeling, and being able to be prepared for upcoming interviews and going to the OPCD and trying to get your resume all figured out and being prepped for interview questions is the only thing I think you can do in regarding networking as well. So that's definitely how I was feeling.
I remember, Sophie, that you were in here quite a bit in the September, October, making sure that you
Yes.
captured that internship so you could leverage it. Torrin, what is it like for seniors in that September timeframe? How are they feeling?
Well, I know for me, I was in the same boat as Massey and Sophie. So I was coming out of an internship where they didn't extend return offers, and it was extremely stressful. I thought that I had started my job search back in August, basically right around the time where I'd finished my previous internship, and I was really just disheartened by it because I felt like everybody else was 10 steps ahead of where I was. That's kind of where my head was at in those first couple of months. But as I kind of learned, since in those first few months of the fall, there aren't a whole lot of job postings, it was really more of a trial and error phase for me in a sense, because I wasn't entirely sure on how to navigate the job market. Um, 'Cause it's very different from the internship market. And so kind of transitioning to that and figuring out what sort of strategies when it comes to reaching out to alumni and people within companies to try to schedule like informal chats or interview, how to like go about processes and interviews as well was what was mostly on my mind at that time.
So I hear two things. One, trying to use the fall to go ahead and do skill building around search and making sure you have all of the tools ready. And then I also hear, just sort of in the things that you're talking about, that there is this feeling that everybody else has it figured out and you might be the only one who isn't quite established. I saw Massey smile, Torrin and Sophie. Is that close? It feels like everybody else has got things going on.
I half of that's the epitome of Wake Forest. You're at a competitive school with very competitive students, and that's part of why your kids are at Wake Forest. But sometimes it is very easy to get caught in the mindset that everyone's 10 steps ahead of you, when in reality, you're on the right path.
I think that is a really helpful thing to understand about the mindset that happens for seniors as we sit here at the beginning of this academic year. And I would say I've had some students say, LinkedIn is my favorite social media. And I've had others say, I can't look at LinkedIn one more time because I don't always feel great when I do that. And I think that, Massey, perhaps that speaks to what you're saying. Sophie, you're nodding.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I remember during this time as a senior, I couldn't look at LinkedIn. I would get a notification and I just had to turn my phone off. But I think it's definitely having that mindset switch of there's a lot more people in the same boat as you
That's right.
think that there is.
And a lot more opportunities that may not yet have revealed themselves. And Torrin, I saw you smile as Sophie was talking. What were the strategies you used to keep yourself motivated, even while LinkedIn was giving you notifications?
So when I got to a point where I was just too beyond stressed out with the job search, I found it really important to take like a day break, maybe every 2 or 3 weeks, just to reset and refresh my mind. Because seeing the updates on LinkedIn and whatnot of people with their posting their post grad plans could get really stressful. But also just navigating that, I think the most important part is just to be able to try to stay in your own lane to the best of your ability and really focus on improving the things that you can do on a day-to-day basis. Whether that's just like spending 20 to 30 minutes a day looking at your resume, thinking about different points that you could change to fit and tailor to a specific job posting that you're really interested in that has a deadline coming up, something along those lines.
I think a lot of, given what you just said, Torrin, it reminds me of so many conversations I've had with seniors that they feel like they have to have a job by graduation. And that just feels like something that has to happen when we all know on this, sitting here with you all and the way your careers have started, careers start at different times for different industries, and they start in different ways. Sophie, you have this job that you found, and will you speak to how your job started? Because it's a very interesting story.
Yes. So I was looking mainly for marketing positions. I was a marketing and I was also a film minor. So I was hoping to find something within those niches, which that was my goal. So in the spring was mainly when marketing roles started to pop up. So in the spring, I was applying to probably like 10 a day, maybe 10 every other day, and really hoping for those interviews. And I was taking every single interview, just trying to get experience, even if it wasn't a job I was super excited about. I knew that the more I talked to people, the more comfortable I would feel when an opportunity popped up that I was very, very into and excited for. So, also in the spring is when internships start coming along for are mainly for juniors or for sophomores. And so I just started, I know Miss Heidi was like, you need to start applying to these internships because who knows what's gonna happen. So I started applying to the internships and I got an interview and I came in for the interview here in Charlotte and I told them that I would love for this to become potentially a full-time position, and they were totally accepting of that, and they were like, "We know that you're a senior, and that's obviously what most graduates would be looking for, so, like, let's bring you on," and I ended up getting the full-time position. I was supposed to get the full-time position maybe in 90 days, see how my 30, 60, 90-day check-in went, but I ended up getting it within 30 days, which was so awesome. So definitely keep in mind that you should apply to those internships because you never know.
I love that. I'm sure on day one, they knew that they would be extending that offer. Massey and Torrin, great story, Soph. Tell me a little bit about when you landed.
So I was able to take the mindset of keeping a lot of lines in the water. And a big portion of that was trying to utilize the Charlotte network and the cities around you. So as the months went and I knew jobs weren't going to be opening for the real estate profession for the most part towards the end of winter or at least spring, I was stacking up as many networking calls as I possibly could, most 2 to 3 a week, trying to work around calendars and also make sure that I had strategically aligned my spring schedule so I could network with individuals. And then once I was able to speak to a lot of different people, I was able to reap the rewards of that in the spring, early spring. And that's when I saw job postings start to really pop up and utilize the network that I had built in the previous fall in my previous internship to start to say, hey, I'm still out here. I'm ready to go. I just need somewhere to run. And that's where you can utilize your network, and what you're doing right now as a student in the fall and winter is when you get to reap the rewards.
Hmm. So it came later in the spring. And Torin, how about for you?
So I was in the case where I landed my first job at the beginning of August, and then I started about a month later. So I started at the around the beginning of September. And what I had done is I actually had applied for a different position here at CoStar, with just in a different role, and I kind of gone through the interview process through it back in June, and then I ultimately decided, this isn't something that I really think I'll be able to excel in and enjoy, which was one of the biggest parts for me when it came to finding my first job. And then a recruiter came back and called me and introduced the position that I'm in currently, and I felt like it aligned a lot more with what my interests are and what my capabilities kind of entail as well. And yeah, I think kind of just the backpack of what Massey said, the most important things that I was doing throughout the spring were just trying to get as many interviews as possible, even if it's in a position that I wasn't entirely interested in, because it just really builds the soft skills to be able to present yourself in a way that you can kind of maximize your strengths and skills to employers.
You all have given such great advice, and it's embedded within your stories. If we were going to, at a very high level, leave a nugget with parents about either how parents can help or what they can suggest to their students, what would you say? A little snack size piece of advice before we go.
I can start. Uh, Always keep pushing your kids to keep applying to jobs and to not give up. Remind them that they're not in the real world yet, they're in college, and to have fun.
Good. So keep on pushing, and remember that that things will come in the spring, that they shouldn't worry. I mean, they've got runway. I'll go back to that metaphor. Sophie, how about you?
Yeah, I would agree with Massey. I think um utilizing as like parents utilizing your network and seeing how and where you can help your student the best and the most, and just having conversations with them. I know that I was super stressed out at certain times, so kind of having to dial in, and just getting words of encouragement from my parents was what helped me the best. And I think that that can really help, you know, shut out a little bit of the noise of everyone else getting jobs, or your friends posting on LinkedIn, as we talked about before. So I feel like just having those small pushes can definitely help the most.
Torin, thank you, Sophie, thank you, Massey. And Torin, I'm going to ask you, how can the OPCD help seniors?
So the biggest way that the OPCD helped me in my senior year was just helping me tailor my resume. How can I build out my resume to represent the star format in the best way possible, so that it was in a form where I could change it for any single job application that I put out, with only having to change a few keywords here and there. That's the biggest thing. I think just sit down with a career coach, sit down with there are also students as well who are going to be in the exact same position as you, um, who have a lot of experience and tailoring the resume. So just make sure that you leverage those resources, because those will be very, very helpful for you going forward.
You all have so much to be proud of in your stories, in the successes that you're already having, and you are such great representatives of Wake Forest and the class of 2025. Thank you all. And I just look forward to I look forward to seeing more of your LinkedIn updates, you three. So thank you all for being with us. Andy, shall we go ahead and close things out?
Sounds great. Torrin, Massey, Sophie, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us and sharing your experiences. Congratulations on where you're at. And as proud members of the Deacon Network of alumni out there, I know that you'll be helping the next generation come through. So yeah, if any of your students out there, I'm sure, are thinking, wow, I should actually connect my student with one of these three, just tell them to use LinkedIn, send a message, and you'll be responsive, which we really appreciate. So thanks again for your time. So to the parents, just to wrap up, I want to ask Heidi one question that we sometimes get that I think might be one that people ask is specifically gap year. So sometimes students are thinking, I'm going to go to med school or maybe law school, and I'm going to have 1 year before I actually go to school. Like, how should students think about that? How can we help them with that?
I think the gap year is an excellent way for students who are considering some kind of graduate or professional school to go ahead and develop the rest of their story in the next chapter. A gap year needs to be intentional. It needs to be something that matters to that student and something that helps them gain more skills and experiences and a story that can either help them pivot into a career, if that's sort of what inspires them, or gives them a great story that explains why they are a candidate for medical school, for business school, whatever it might be, law school, but being very intentional about how they use that time.
That's great. Thanks, Heidi. One of the things that I think about, again, back to if you looked at the Q&A, Patrick actually answered a question about saying for like international students, if we can get to know your specific story and what you're interested in, we can actually help you create your personal, unique plan to you. Sometimes what people think of is, oh, isn't there just like a directory of gap year like opportunities you just like serve up to students and then they go in? And the reality is probably not, especially given what the uniqueness of the kind of thing that your student might be most interested in experiencing and needing. We can help you network your way into an opportunity that may be one where you actually don't tell the employer right up front that you're only going to be working for 1 year. Like you actually need to sort of think through like how to navigate that process, et cetera. So anyways, as you can tell, there's a lot of nuance in all that, and we can definitely help your student no matter what. I'm going to wrap in with this last question, you, Heidi. Our alumni were amazing. They gave great advice. For you, is there anything in particular that you'd like to say to parents to help them navigate this time of uncertainty, anxiety, sometimes frustration, and oftentimes like feeling like hardship with your students? Any key words of wisdom you have for them?
I just think about what our young alumni just said and sort of the internal the message they have internalized, given all of the ideas that everyone else has it figured out, they're behind, there's nothing left, they should have had a return offer. And so as parents, it's an opportunity for us to come alongside with compassion. You know more than anyone how much you love your students, and we love them too. We want to be their partners, and they want you to be their partners. This particular generation, you are their primary consultant. And so you have an opportunity to share your own story, the things that you were thinking about as a senior, the things that worried you or made you excited, and who helped you, and what you might have done differently. Those are really powerful. We are people of story. And so the idea that you share yours may be very helpful to your student.
Beautiful. I was thinking about that too, because Sophie really made a point of when it feels like the world's not going well or it's hard for a parent to be able to say, um, keep on going. I believe in you. Like there's an opportunity there. It's only going to take one. Like helping, be encouraging, and having faith that they can get there. And if it feels like they're not doing like the right thing, try to help them find a way to go to people who have resources and knowledge who can help them, like us. And we have many students who come to our office who say, I'm here because my parent wouldn't stop telling me to come to see you, and that's totally fine. That's part of why we come to talk to you about these things. We want that. The one thing that really stood out to me was something that Torrin said, which was soft skills really matter. And one of the things that your students have is they're great at communicating, great interpersonal skills, great people of character. But the process of communicating to employers when you don't need to get a job and you need to present yourself in a certain kind of way, like we can really help get you ready. And so when Massey said, I spent a lot of time really getting prepared for the moment when the time came where I was going to have to really do the interview or have that important conversation. And then months later it happened, like he was ready. So that's a way to help your students, is just say, just do the work and trust that process, even though it's not going to happen right away. This good things take time, and it'll happen, but you wanna know how to play that sort of game, and we can help them with that. So Heidi, I'll give you one last thing to say, and then we'll say thank you to everyone.
Absolutely. There are so many strategies that just remain invisible to college students because they just haven't had that experience out in the professional world yet. And so one of the things that I would say is one of the best gifts we can do as their partners is to help them with those strategies and going ahead and helping them stay on the milestones and the sort of similar to what Massey said, which is going ahead and getting some reps in with the networking calls, and like Sophie said, getting those interviews in. Your students are receiving emails from our team often, and they are receiving them from coaches that are specifically addressed to them. And so just rest assured that we are reaching out to them, and the best thing that could happen is for them to take a small step toward us.
Great. Well, I'm going to say thank you to all you parents for taking the time to be with us, for showing an interest, obviously, in how your students are doing and how you can be helpful to them. We hope you gave you information tonight that will help you as you become the best executive coach you can be to your child, and know that we're right here at beautiful Wake Forest, ready to help them when they're ready to get going. So everything you can to push them our way, we're ready for them, and we're very optimistic things are going to be solid, even though it's a cloudy market out there, like solid for Wake Forest students. Wake Forest students show up and they are amazing. Your students are amazing. We're really glad we get a chance to work with them and support them. So thank you very much. Have a great night, and we'll see you around campus. Go Deeks.
Go Deeks.